I'm Jay Wenger. This is John Hewlett. We work together in what we call our public finance unit. Susquehanna Group Advisors is headquartered in Harrisburg. We provide accounting and financial advisory services to primarily governmental entities, but some 501c3 entities, healthcare, higher ed, MHMR, etc. Recently, we have worked with Adams County, Carbon County, Franklin County on selling their skilled nursing homes, and we provided some information on each of those in here because they were somewhat different, although all three came to the same conclusion. Owning a nursing home for anybody is a very challenging business. In the mid-1990s, the government decided that cost reimbursement was a prohibitively expensive way to reimburse nursing home providers, and so they shifted the reimbursement model for Medicaid to basically a capitated payment system whereby you're paid based on the service you provide, and it's your obligation as the operator to make your expenses fit within that payment structure. And that changed the landscape dramatically because prior to that, it really didn't matter how efficient you were or weren't. You just submitted your expenses and they reimbursed you, and that was actually kind of a nice world to operate within. But as the population aged and the senior living industry expanded to what it has become today, the dollars just became so large that the state government had to find a better way to deal with the payment system. Pennsylvania happens to have a relatively older population and is a marketplace where senior living in a lot of ways grew up, particularly in south central Pennsylvania. It's almost considered the birthplace of the continuing care retirement community, which is one of your keenest competitors as you operate a skilled nursing home. And so when you look around central Pennsylvania, this is one of the most heavily populated markets for senior care. Most of those, however, are offering a full spectrum of care and not just skilled care. We'll get into that a little bit later as to why that is significant. The general perception is that the nursing home is a necessary governmental function, and it is not. The county code has one simple sentence that says you have an obligation to provide care for the indigent. It does not say you have to operate any healthcare facilities to do that. You just have to provide care. In today's world of Medicaid eligibility and payment system, in our opinion, and I think you would get a lot of people in the industry to concur with this assessment, the only way you would encounter a resident of senior age that doesn't qualify for Medicaid is probably that they aren't a legal U.S. citizen. And so therefore they would not qualify for Medicaid, and then it would be incumbent upon the county to provide care for that person if they didn't have resources. Into are you accurately, properly, and dutifully tracking and receiving every penny of payment you're entitled to. And under this new system of payments based on care provided, the game, and I'll call it a game, is how good are you at fitting into that formula of if there's $1 of reimbursement, did I get it? Was there a level of care a resident was entitled to that we didn't provide? And if we didn't provide it, why didn't we provide it? And if we did provide it, did we in fact properly record it? And did we get paid for every dollar of care we provided and were entitled to receive? And so it becomes a very difficult game of managing inside the rooms to make sure that you're getting paid for what you do. Second option would be hire consultant, perform an operational assessment, and you'll see a little bit later we actually offer that to everybody because we think it's very important that regardless of what decision you arrive at in this array of options, we think it's very important that as a governmental body you understand absolutely what the problems are, what the fixes might be, and when you get to a solution, you can stand up in front of the public and say with confidence, we've made our decision based on this fact pattern and we don't see any other option but the one we've selected. If you can do that, then we think you are head and shoulders above anybody standing in the audience who just has an opinion that says, we don't think you should sell. And third would be to hire a management company to run the facility. The corner barbershop is kind of on the way out of the business. The corner hardware store is for the most part out of the business. And if there are one or two still in your community, they probably are struggling just to stay afloat, let alone be viable businesses. The Walmarts of the world, the Lowe's Home Centers, the Giants, the Piggly Wigglies, the Food Lions, their economies of scale and purchasing are so great that they drive the little guy out of business in a very short period of time. And as a standalone facility trying to purchase and operate 324 beds, you're competing in a marketplace where somebody's buying for 1,500 beds, 3,000 beds, or even more. 4 would be lease the operations to an outside vendor. You kind of become a landlord, and you really have to ask yourself, do I want to be a landlord? 5 would be sell it or transfer ownership to a not-for-profit. Number 6 is sell. What really works in the marketplace today, and why this has become such a popular topic to discuss and consider, is since the recession of 08-09, county budgets have been very, very stressed. Real estate tax collections aren't going up. There's very little expansion of revenue, and yet the needs and the expenses continue to rise. And at the same time, the value of skilled nursing centers has gone up considerably. We're very careful in saying you have no obligation to sell to the high bidder. We think it is very important, probably at the top of the list, that the buyer is culturally consistent with the local community, has a business model that you are comfortable with as well as we're comfortable with, and is going to make an outstanding commitment to the community and the industry for a long period of time. And so people say, well, how do you ensure that? The market has become so competitive. In Franklin County, what, we have 19 firms?
Well,
18 firms had actually executed a confidentiality agreement to gain access to the database of due diligence information. We had 9 or 10?
9 tours.
9 tours. We had 10 firms that were going to submit a proposal. 1 couldn't secure financing, so I think we had 9.
We actually received 10 bids.
10 bids.
9 tours.
Okay, 9 tours, and we had an 11th firm that couldn't secure financing in time. And the point I'm trying to make is it's a very competitive market with a lot of people trying to buy and grow their footprint. And why do they want it when you can't make money? It's a question everybody asks us. And it's not a one line item business. It's not like somebody comes in and says, okay, I see what you do in your department, that's the problem. It is a nickel and dime business every day of the week, 7 days a week, round the clock, all 3 shifts. Part of it is managing the residents coming in. A lot of county homes, and I'm not being critical of anybody in Lebanon County or anybody, but if you go to a for-profit facility or a well-run not-for-profit, they are fairly aggressive in their outreach to the referral sources, the hospitals, and saying, look, we appreciate all the phone calls and we appreciate your resident you sent us, but if you have somebody really sick, we would take those people. The higher the acuity level that's assigned to each resident, the higher your case mix index is, the more money you receive from the government for care of those people. You essentially don't change your staffing significantly if your CMI is 0.96 or 1.06 or 1.12. You're probably, and I'm going to guess, we haven't seen a lot of information, but I'm going to guess that your staffing level is not off market, that you probably are pretty good at staffing. One of the issues is how many call-offs you get and how much agency labor you're using, but on a hours per resident day, you probably are within 10 to 15% of even the low end of the marketplace. So the next guy coming in isn't going to say, I'm just going to take a line item to labor, I'm going to whack all these people, and voila, I'm now cash flow positive. That's not the answer. The answer is, do I get the right residents in the bed, and people who are in those jobs 8 hours a day, 3 shifts a day, are they actually fully employed for that full shift? Because we want people to be busy if we're paying them. And then the next issue is that nurse properly recording care for every resident for every hour of every shift? And a lot of nickels and dimes drop out of the system because you have not properly recorded and applied for reimbursement of the care. So it's a combination of what comes in the door, it's a combination of what you do when they're in the door, and then there are some other services that you can add on the periphery of what you do in a core business to enhance revenue, but all of that takes a tremendous amount of time and attention. And it's when it's your own money, you bought the business, and the success of it is purely a function of paying attention to that formula every day. Very difficult business, and every couple of years the state changes the formula, they change this or they change that. And it's hard to stay abreast of all those changes. It's very difficult to, as a county government in a single site facility, to apply all the capital needs that the nursing home has, and it's very difficult to apply all of the training that should be applied to that facility. We're going to turn around and we're going to visit all your facilities, and we're going to do the same thing to you that you did to us. And we're going to kick your tires, we're going to look at your survey results, we're going to look at how you manage care, we're going to see the look on the residents' faces when a nurse walks in a room, And then we're going to evaluate you the same way you evaluated us, because we're going to turn this place over to you, but it's still in Lebanon County. We still have a responsibility to our residents and to the taxpayers here that the success of this is the transfer is a positive, not a negative. Home operators are the same way. They view Pennsylvania, because of the aging population and the reimbursement model, they view it as a very attractive state. But none of them want to own just one facility in Lebanon County. They want to own a franchise, if you will, that basically stretches along the turnpike. And you can get off the turnpike any number of miles, but as long as they can travel the turnpike to get to a facility they acquire, that is a good franchise expansion. And so what we want to do is come in, and they will spend the better part of a year evaluating everybody, trying to change the culture, trying to change the level of productivity, trying to change the attention to detail, and make those people buy into their culture, their business model, their care tracking methodologies, whatever they might be, and turn them into what they call their type of employee as opposed to what they were before. And I'm not saying they're bad employees, but there's going to be changes. And so, you know, we hear two things. Well, the residents are going to be discharged. No, they're not. They're not buying the building. They're buying the residents. Well, the employees are going to lose their jobs. No, they're not. There's nowhere else to replace that labor. Business model. They live and breathe Medicaid reimbursement. They are absolutely fine with a Medicaid population that is over 75% all the time. One of the things we do to ensure that is we embed it in the sale agreement, that for the next 10 years you will commit to a Medicaid census no less than the day you take ownership. So if it have to be 72% the day you take ownership, you're going to live by that commitment for at least the next 10 years. With more attention to detail and better operating results, because they have vastly greater purchasing power than you do, they can spread all of their management expertise over 3,000 beds, not 300 beds. And that becomes very important, because part of being successful is being able to attract the right people to manage a facility, and part of that is being able to compensate them. To be very candid, they will try to maximize the Medicare population on a daily basis. But I would imagine, and I haven't seen your data, but I'm going to guess you're probably 70 to 80% Medicaid, 5 to 15% Medicare, with a very, very small private pay population. And that's a guess just based on what we see at every county home. And so in there, when I say they might try to improve the Medicare population, it's a modest number. It's not going to double in size, but they're going to try to get as many Medicare residents as they can on a short-term rehab basis, because that reimbursement rate is nearly double what the Medicaid rate is. The liability doesn't go away just because you sell the nursing home. You still owe those people benefits based on whatever their benefit is as of the day you would change ownership. You have to be able to go to breakfast Saturday morning and feel good when somebody says, why did you sell to XYZ? We give you as much information as we can, but ultimately you're going to have to decide who you like the best. And we tell everybody right up front, number one, it might not sell at all, and number two, just because you're high bidder doesn't mean you get the business. Montgomery County, you'll see a really big number there. There's about 200 acres of vacant land in Montgomery County that the buyer is buying along with the nursing home. And if you have any appreciation for real estate values in suburban Philadelphia versus central PA, that starts to make a little bit of sense. And so the point of this slide is that we're seeing values up in the mid-50s to mid-$60,000 range per bed. The more beds somebody can buy, the more leverage and economies of scale they think they can realize over time. And so the value per bed in a larger facility should be higher than in a smaller facility, because they really like the kind of bang for the dollar. We came in and did the assessment, and it was just painfully clear that the problems were overwhelming, and the ability to turn the battleship on a reasonable schedule and make improvements and go in a better direction was just almost an impossible task. And on top of that, they were on a provisional license. We didn't have enough time to solve all the problems. As I said earlier, a lot of interest in the marketplace. And the interest is in part because they view Pennsylvania as an attractive reimbursement state, unlike some other states. They view the population as being positive to the industry, and their access to capital at a very, very low cost of capital is as good as it's ever been and probably ever will be, and who knows. At some point, interest rates have to start going up. And so there is almost this shark-like feeding frenzy to acquire nursing homes now. And you look at the prior slide where there are maybe 20 left at the end of the year, they also see the universe of sellers as dwindling. Why would they pay $11 million in Franklin County? Why not start your own? Because you can't get licensure for Medicaid and Medicare reimbursement in today's marketplace. If you want to be a nursing home operator and start digging footers, it becomes a private pay facility.
How would you answer the concern for someone asking about a vendor coming in from out of state and taking those licensed beds out of?
You can move them X number of miles, and it's a fairly limited scope. In fact, we had a client last year who wanted to sell some beds, and I had called a couple of our contacts in the not-for-profit world and said, would you be interested in acquiring 15 beds? He said, where is it? I told him, he said, we're like 5 miles beyond the border. I can't buy it.
What is the amount of mileage that they can be moved? And
Don't
where-
hold me to this, but I think it's 60.
And where can I find that?
I'll get you the answer. I'll look anything into the agreement you want is the point I'm trying to make. It may or may not affect the price, and it may or may not be a material change to the price, and then you can decide how much you really want to keep that embedded in the contract. But no, we would not allow them to have the ability to take the license out of Pennsylvania or out of the county. And they would have to make a commitment to operate Cedar Haven as a Medicaid-eligible nursing home for at least 10 years. The question we always get is, why would somebody pay us $15 million for a facility we're losing money? And I go back to, it's a nickel and dime game on every hour of every shift, but it's also the economies of scale they generate of allocating corporate overhead over thousands of beds, not 300, of being able to buy bed linens, washers, food, pharmaceuticals. Everything is done on a greater scale, and so their pricing, their buying power is much, much better than yours, and they exercise that on a daily basis. Nobody in the industry looks at it as private pay is the answer to the problem. It's an operational attack on a lot of fronts. Not
How many sales have you handled?
we worked with Jefferson County on kind of a second sale, a kind of unique set of facts. I'm sorry, not Jefferson, Clinton County, or Clarion County, Adams County, Franklin County, Carbon County. We had worked informally with Dauphin County. We would be willing to do for you, if it helps in your thought process, we can give you, not an intensely detailed operational assessment, because that's a fairly time-consuming and expensive process. But if you wanted a kind of a high level, come in and look at it, tell us what you think, we'd be willing to do that with no charge and really no expectation. You wouldn't have to retain us, but it might give you a better sense of what's going on. We can look at a few metrics to tell you what's working, what's not.
I hear you say that you handled 4 sales.
Yes.
And of those 4 sales, how many were from 2 Pennsylvania companies?
Carbon County was to a facility that's headquartered in Du Bois, I think it's Du Bois, which is Guardian Elder Care. Adams County sold to Transitions, which was headquartered in Sykesville, Maryland, thank you. Franklin County is selling to Mid-Atlantic, which is headquartered in Timonium, but operates more facilities in Pennsylvania than they do in Maryland. I think they have 4 in Maryland, 1 in Delaware, and they're actually buying Montgomery County's Park House facility. They own 6 nursing homes in Philadelphia.
I'm sorry, just if you could keep your answers very short, I would
Sorry.
appreciate it. Clarion was sold to what?
Clarion sold to Extendicare, which is a Milwaukee-based management company, but has a fairly significant franchise in Pennsylvania.
Milwaukee.
Yep.
And Du Bois, Iowa?
No, Du Bois, Pennsylvania was a Guardian, which bought Carbon County.
Okay, so one of the 4 was in
Yep.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Thank-
We've had interest from as far away as Florida.
They actually own and operate more homes in Pennsylvania
Yeah.
than any other market.
Yeah.
Both of the Maryland buyers
But
do.
their corporate
headquarters is
headquarters
in-
is in Maryland.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Maryland, for whatever reason, several years ago had more troubled facilities perhaps in Pennsylvania, so it seems like a lot of these management companies were spawned in Maryland as a result of failing facilities and working with the state to turn them around. Pennsylvania has always been a very competitive and aggressive market for senior care, again, just because of the CCR industry kind of growing up here. And so, you know, Pennsylvania, I think, is probably way ahead of a lot of states in terms of the industry.
Of the 25 homes that have been sold in the state of Pennsylvania, is there a demographic of who has bought them and where they're located? I mean, where their home offices
You know,
are?
not really. You know, I pointed out Extendicare bought the facility in Clarion County, and they, at the time, were very aggressively acquiring facilities. The last 3 or 4, we didn't even get a response from.
If I can just go back to your statement concerning the economies of scale, when it comes to purchasing goods, counties are allowed to use the state contract price and
Yep.
things have been bid out. So really, we do have that economies of scale when purchasing, you know, washers, dryers, whatever it is that we're purchasing, vehicles, you know, all that sort of thing. So I don't know that that is a reason